how do you know that the guru, the book, the prophet, and the God that you are listening to is telling you the truth? Maybe they're wrong. Maybe they're lying. Hi everyone. Today I'm trying to decode a certain point that is frequently made by people who either come from religious quarters or even from certain philosophical schools. And that has to do with our senses. How reliable are our senses? How much credence should we give to the data that our senses provide us about the universe? So, this episode is about, can you trust your senses? Here's the argument I'm talking about. People who make this argument say that our entire perception of the universe is based on our own senses. There is nothing in this universe that we can independently verify. We see, hear, taste, and smell reality. Without our senses, we would not be able to perceive reality. And because our senses are the only pathway through which we can perceive reality, it is safe to say that all of reality exists in our minds. For example, if I eat a gulab jamun and I say that it is sweet, you have to take my word for it. There is no way for you to know what I experienced. But that's not entirely true, is it? You have had gulab jamuns before. You and I speak the same language. When I say that the gulab jamun is sweet, you already have a frame of reference for it. You know that the word sweet means a certain taste. And you have your entire life used that word to denote that taste. So when I said that the gulab jamun is sweet, you agree with me because you associate the same word with the same taste. Even if you have never had a gulab jamun, you can give that gulab jamun to other people and ask them how it tastes. And they can use the word sweet and you can then verify from their accounts what I am saying. It's called peer review. It's one of the foundations of the scientific method. But the people who make this argument about our senses not being reliable often say that even the accounts from other people that you are hearing are coming to us through our senses, right? We are hearing them, we are seeing them, we are reading them. How can we be sure that what our senses are giving us is true? I am a materialist, and the simplest answer to this problem from my perspective is asking, do you have a better alternative? Because if I don't trust my senses, if I don't look at the universe through my senses and come to conclusions about reality based on the data that my senses are giving me, what other way do I have? I will be happy to learn other methods of perceiving reality from people who say that our senses do not give us the whole picture. And I agree, it is entirely possible to fool yourself with the data that your senses give. Our senses frequently fool us. But is there a better method? Is there some method apart from our senses that we can use to judge reality? Because the earlier method that I mentioned, the method of peer review, where you verify information from multiple points of view, where you ask other people what they think of the observation that you have made, and they give you information that their senses give them, and you compare notes and you come to some kind of conclusion about what reality is. I think that method works. I think that method is sufficient for most purposes in life. Sure, nobody can be absolutely sure about anything. But we can be maximally sure about things. We can be as sure as it is possible to be about something using the peer review method. I will grant you that this method is not absolutely 100% perfect and that there is scope to be fooled. But it is the best method we have. And as I said earlier, I am open to hearing other methods from people who say that our senses cannot be trusted. The method of peer review, which I already mentioned, is a foundation of the scientific method, is not something that was regularly used as a way of perceiving reality back in the day. With the advent of modern science and peer review, we have relied on this method more and more in order to make sense of reality. This is why when one scientist finds something in the sky, he writes it down, he compares his notes with his fellow scientist, and if she sees the same thing that he sees, they both say, this is real. And even then, they open it up to other scientists, ask them to look at the same thing and ask them to note down their findings and compare notes. If everyone comes to the same conclusion, it is accepted to be true. Now, is it possible that all of them are wrong? Sure. We have been in that place before. Scientists en masse have been wrong about things. But when they do find out that they have been wrong about something, they change the notes. They say that we are wrong, we were wrong, and that we should not be wrong, and that here's the new thing that we all agree upon. That is how we process reality. Why then do religious people or people who subscribe to some kind of spirituality often bring this point up? Why do they keep bringing up the fact that our senses cannot be trusted? Why do they keep saying that there has to be more, that our senses don't give us the whole picture? I think this has to do with authority. And I hate to get political here, and this will become a little political, although not in overt ways. But bear with me. Religious scripture and spiritual doctrines often depend on authority. People don't get to judge the realities that they are being shown, and therefore they just have to take the word of a holy book, a prophet, a god, a deity, a guru, etc. This method has for a long time been the backbone of religious thought. Religious thought is not exploratory in nature. It is often simply authority based. Somebody tells you something and you're just supposed to swallow it. But this method obviously has holes in it. How much can you really swallow? Sometimes what you're being asked to swallow is so unswallowable that one does feel the need to verify what they are being asked to swallow. And most people, when they do try to verify what their guru or their holy book or their teacher or their god is telling them, they find that there is no real way to verify this. And because they want to believe it, they try to find justifications for believing in it. And they say, sure, there is no way to verify this, but do I really have any verification or anything else at all? Even my senses are not giving me the whole picture about reality. So, believing in my senses is the same as believing in the authority of this source. Questioning our senses is something that is encouraged by religious or spiritual quarters, because if they did not do it, their dukan will be shut down. In order to maintain the legitimacy of the authority-based method, all other methods have to be devalued. Because if they are not devalued, then it is very clear that those methods work better than the authority-based method. I repeat, I agree that our senses may not give us the whole picture, but we don't have a better alternative. The alternative that religious and spiritual quarters often suggest is actually not a good method at all. And there is another problem with it also. How do you know that the guru, the book, the prophet, and the god that you are listening to is telling you the truth? Maybe they're wrong. Maybe they're lying. And also, all the information that they're giving you is still coming to you through your senses. So the initial point that they gave you, that you cannot trust your senses, you can also apply it to them. Because you really don't have any other method of perceiving reality except your senses. The best you can do is compare notes with other people. That's it for this video. I am Vimoh and you have been watching YouTube using your senses. I will see you in the next one. Bye. How much can you really swallow? Because sometimes what you are being asked to swallow is sometimes what you're being asked to swallow is so large